In this video I will show you my home server in 2025 and it is not what you think. As the year name in the title might suggest, my server for 2025 could be completely new hardware. A thick AMD Ryzen processor, lots of RAM and even more hard drive space. The complete opposite is the case, as my server only wants video surveillance as the main application, which requires a lot of resources. This means I don't need that much computing power. All applications that I use, such as the cloud solution Nextcloud or the photo application Image, run in Docker containers which hardly require any CPU resources. Why do I actually need the server? This is always the most important question for me when it comes to a home server. What do I want to do with it? These days we tend to buy an oversized server that we never really use. At the end of the day, this is just wasting money and electricity costs. That's why it's important to think about what you want to do beforehand. My experience has shown that most applications actually no longer cause any load on a server because the processors have generally become so powerful. I mainly run video surveillance software on my server, which requires the most processor power. The rest are small containers with applications that don't draw a lot of resources, like Nextcloud as a cloud platform for data or Image as photo management software. What does the hardware look like? The hardware is pretty unexciting and boring. It is an old Dell Optiplex computer from 2015 with an old i5 processor. I got the computer for free and the only thing I did was install new hard drives and also increase the RAM to 32 GB. Since my surveillance cameras are cheap hardware from China and I want to prohibit internet access through network separations, I installed an old Intel 4-port network card. How is the server set up? The server operating system is Proxmox, which was installed normally. There are no special configurations. A few virtual machines run on the Proxmox, most of which have Debian installed as the operating system. The OpenSense firewall ensures network separation. In this machine, the 4-port network card is passed through with PCI pass-through. Behind the firewall, there are then various separate networks. And that's actually the most complex thing about my setup. On the subject of networking, in general, I have chosen a flat design in my network at home. This means that all devices such as computers or smartphones are in one network area. Only the camera surveillance is in a separate network segment. I choose this design because, in my opinion, a complex network design at home is unnecessary and brings unnecessary complexity. In the past, I have segmented the networks even deeper, but that always means that you have to set up the appropriate firewall rules and routing. From my point of view, that no longer makes sense at home. The UniFi controller in its own VM takes care of network management. Since all of my components are from UniFi, they are nice and easy to manage. The Frigate machine represents the video surveillance software. With AI, it can recognize people and objects and then only record the part of the video that is relevant. Who wants to search through 24 hours of video footage because an unauthorized person runs through the garden at exactly 1 minute? As I said, the machine draws the most CPU power despite the Edge TPU Coral USB stick. The Pi-hole container provides the ad blocking service for my network. This gives all of my devices appropriate protection against advertising and trackers without me having to install an ad blocker on each device. This is absolutely practical for devices where there is not simply an ad blocker program, such as Apple smartphones or tablets. In addition, these apps are usually always sketchy. The VPN machine has Tailscale installed. This allows me to establish a VPN connection from outside to my home network without any major configuration or problems. It's so easy that you just have to install Tailscale and log in with your account. There is no longer any need for a firewall, router or dynamic DNS configuration. Here again, as simple and functional as possible is the best way for me. The Docker machine is for my Docker containers. I often play around there and test new containers and apps. What runs permanently and stably is Nextcloud for file sharing, Image as photo software and Heimdall as the central dashboard. Since I want to use all of these services with the apps on smartphones, a valid HTTPS certificate is often required these days. I get this using my own domain and the Nginx proxy manager as a reverse proxy. I can show you how to set this up in a next video. Let me know in the comments if you need something like that. So what are the advantages of this structure? Probably the most important advantage is that I have not purchased any unnecessary hardware and instead use my old computer a little bit longer as a server. This means at the end of the day I can achieve all my goals without having to spend a lot of money. You can usually find an old computer with a multi-core processor for little money, or it's sitting around in the corner for free. I know the question you're asking yourself now, does it make sense to use older hardware and run all of my important services on it? Or do I have to worry that the server will break every minute and won't start anymore? I can take your fear away. I've been running servers for several years now, and they were all old desktop computers that I continue to operate as servers. At the end of the day, nothing ever broke apart from hard drives after a certain amount of time. But this is expected because hard drives are mechanical drives, and yeah, it wear out over time. It is therefore important to operate the hard drives in a RAID setup. In addition, mirroring the hard drives is of course not a data backup itself, but only ensures that availability is maintained. This means if one hard drive fails, the data on the other hard drive is still there and can be restored. However, if the room where the server is located catches fire, the RAID will no longer benefit you. That's why it's absolutely important to make a backup that is outside the server location. For example, I save all my data to Hetzner in a storage box. If the old hardware really gives up, I can restore my data quickly and easily. Another advantage is that the whole structure is not very complex. Because there are no heavy configurations and network segmentations, recovery is easy and quick to complete within a few minutes or perhaps an hour. In addition, I don't have a lot of maintenance work and don't have to invest a lot of time if something doesn't work. So what is the conclusion here? I would say that for 90% of home server users, an old worn-out desktop computer that is repurposed is sufficient. If the entire server setup is kept simple, there is no major maintenance effort in the event of problems. It is still very important to back up the entire setup externally and have a reasonable backup in case of an emergency. At the end of the day, it is possible to operate a home server very cheaply and without investing a lot of initial investment and without investing a lot of time into the operation itself. So if this video helped you, please give me a like and a comment, and see you next time.